The Mariners are on their way to Washington, D.C. following a series split against the New York Yankees. Joe and I are going to go over that series and then talk about the trade the Mariners made for Mike Baumann of the Baltimore Orioles, as well as claiming Eduardo Salazar from the Los Angeles Dodgers. We're then going to talk about how the Mariners stacked up against the two best teams in the American League and kind of what that means for this team going forward. And we'll wrap it all up by talking about the Washington Nationals series coming up over the next 3 days. Thank you guys so much for watching episode 89 of the Hit It Here podcast, part of the Bleav Network, the Brandon Herbert episode of the podcast, Joe. I'm with you. How are you?
I'm doing great. Got off work. It was a pretty chill day. Happy to be here. It's a weird day. Normally the podcast is out by now. We're like 5 hours past where the podcast is usually out, so I'm not fully sure how to feel. But a series split against the Yankees, I'll take it. Yes, it looked a bit more promising than maybe it finished out because the Mariners did end up taking the first 2 games in that series. But I think if we had taken a look at this series from an outsider's perspective, taken a step back, removed ourselves from it, splitting with the Yankees is a very happy result. I think going into it, people might have bet that we would probably lose this series, maybe 1-3, similar to the fashion in which we lost the Twins series. But I think it's a little too late to have taken a bet on this series. But future bets, do it with BetOnline. Thank you to BetOnline for being the sponsor for the Hit It Here podcast. BetOnline is your #1 source for all your summer sports this season, from MLB, golf, NBA, and NHL playoffs. All the latest stats, news, and scores will be available to you to follow your favorite teams on BetOnline. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest team matchups, player props, and odds on just about every sport out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Game 1, Colton, was one for the record books. One that is probably game of the year for the Seattle Mariners so far, and it might end up being one of those ones that you look back, top 3 of the year, right? You're down 4-1 heading into the top of the 9th. Clay Holmes has not given up a run in 2024. What do the Mariners do? What does this sometimes, maybe even oftentimes, anemic offense do? They drop 4 on Clay Holmes' head. 4 hits, 4 earned for Clay Holmes in that 9th inning. A blown save. Just, do I want to label it as chaos ball? Or is it just timely clutch hitting? Some of it's chaos, like Luke Raley's little ground dribbler back up the middle. Gleyber Torres throws the ball away. People are mad at Anthony Rizzo. I think there's blame on Gleyber there too as well. But again, it was a pretty slow-moving game. The Mariners broke their streak of allowing pitchers to go 7 innings against them. Marcus Stroman was the first pitcher to do it in 2024. Dom Canzone made him exit the game with a home run to deep center field off of a splitter, I believe. Got the offense going for the Mariners, and maybe that instilled some life into them, into that 9th inning. But Colton, game 1 was one for the record books, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of chaos ball, but you also mentioned it. The Mariners have actually been pretty clutch when it mattered, especially later on in games so far this year. We saw Mitch Haniger with a big little blooper hit there as well. So overall, when Andres Munoz came into this game, you knew it was over, and he kind of finished it all off with that paint that he had against Aaron Judge, 101 on the outside corner there. The Mariners in game 1, it was a feel-good win, kind of launching them into game 2, Joe, where again, they were able to take this game as well, a little bit easier than they were in game 1.
Yeah, Brian Wu has started off his return in 2024 off to a very hot start. 6 innings, 2 hits, 7 Ks. Bro has been cruising through starts. It was J.P. Crawford's first return to the starting lineup as well since his oblique injury, which was very nice. He went 1 for 5. The offense, the top half of the order wasn't really doing a whole lot aside from Luke Raley late in this game, popping a home run in the top of the 8th. But Ty France, Mitch Garver, Josh Rojas, Dylan Moore doing the heavy lifting, specifically Dylan Moore. 2 homers in this game, Colton. We got to Clark Schmidt, a guy that's been pitching very well for the Yankees in 2024. What was successful for the Mariners in this game? Is it just, was this as complete of a win as they have had, I'd say, against one of these top teams?
Against one of the top teams, absolutely. This is a game where they kind of just put it all together, again, on the back of Dylan Moore, mainly. I mean, he kind of did it by himself. Of course, the home run from Ty France as well. But looking at how good Dylan Moore has been, we said that when JP comes back, you have to keep Moore in the lineup, and they did, and it's paid dividends so far. Looking at Brian Wu, again, he is somebody that we didn't know exactly how he was going to come into the season, obviously, with that injury, but he's looked so good so far. And I think that as we move further on into the season and he starts to not have to worry about that 85 pitch limit that he's at, he's going to be someone who's going to be able to work even deeper into games and hopefully bridge the gap a little bit more in this bullpen, Joe. Going on to game 3, however, things were not nearly as fun for the Seattle Mariners.
Yeah, finishing up, I just want to touch on game 2. Gabe Spire wasn't his sharpest, and then Trent Thornton inheriting runners is like a recipe for disaster. Did you just see the good Lord heaven above?
Yeah, I saw Trent Thornton.
Okay, the white light. Yeah, that's what Trent Thornton sees when he inherits runners. He is being sent to heaven. Gleyber Torres took him deep, and the bullpen, aside from Munoz, I'd say, has been kind of shaky here and there. And in this third game, one, Bryce Miller didn't have his best stuff, but we knew it was bound to happen. Soto and Judge would eventually wake up. The sleeping Giants, yes, they did well enough in the first game. Mariners just held them quiet enough to not do the ultimate damage. But Soto, 2 home runs in this game. Judge, the home run in the first inning to, I think, just kind of put a bad taste in the Mariners' mouth. But they do kind of, they claw back late. Cal Raleigh gets it within striking distance. 5-3 game there in going to the bottom of the 8th. But again, this Mariners bullpen is just not where it needs to be as far as depth. A game where you wish you had Matt Brash, you wish you had Gregory Santos, maybe even a Justin Topa type. Those guys just haven't been as developed. It's mainly been Munoz and then Stanek-ish. Austin Voth gives up, is it a 2-run home run in that inning? Yeah, Alex Verdugo, that's who it was. 2-run home run off of Voth in the bottom of the 8th. Makes it a 7-3 game. Mariners lose this game. This Yankees offense is just unbelievably potent.
Looking at this team, I'm honestly like shocked that the Mariners only gave up 19 runs to them in these 4 games, because that's just how good this team is. You saw Juan Soto with those 2 home runs as well. Looking at the New York Yankees team this year, I mean, it is no surprise that they have been as good as they are. I think we just have to be happy with this 2-2 split, but it was pretty clear, Joe, going into game 4, the Mariners needed to get some bullpen help, and they went and traded for Mike Baumann, who we'll talk about in here in just a second. Game 4, Joe, you were at work, so you missed pretty much all of it. And honestly, good for you.
Happy
good
days.
for you. Because it sucked.
Yeah.
Luis Castillo did his job. He only gave up those 2 earned runs. Both of them were, it was a home run to Judge and a home run to Stanton,
Yeah.
I believe.
Mm-hmm.
The 2 just absolute monster human beings that they are. But overall, Luis Castillo did his job, got out of a pretty sticky bases loaded situation. I believe it was in the 5th. And the Mariners they had 1 hit against Luis Gil. And honestly, I know the Mariners offense is kind of poo-poo caca, but like Luis Gil was good. A 94-mile-an-hour changeup, that makes me want to throw up, Joe.
It's gross. It's disgusting. It's a situation like, what can you do? And sure, they were able to work pitch counts against Nestor, got him out after I think 5 innings in the 3rd game, and like they got to Clark Schmidt. They didn't really do anything against Stroman, so like it's back and forth, I think, with this series of like what they're able to do against these starting pitchers. Luis Gil, they let him get into cruise mode, 8 Ks over 6 1/3. Looking just at the box score in general, the top of the lineup for the Yankees just continue to put in work. Like, it's the rest of the lineup, I don't think is as deep, say, as the Orioles, like once you get to like 6, 7, 8, 9, but 1 through 4 is about as good as you're going to come across. Maybe 1 through 5. Like, they're unbelievable up there. Volpe's having a great year. Obviously, Juan Soto, Aaron Judge, Verdugo's like doing pretty well for them. So I'm happy. I want to say I'm happy to miss a game because I always like watching the games, but a 5-0 loss for the Mariners, I'm okay with missing out on this one.
Mm-hmm. Again, the Mariners went 2-2 in this series, and I think I'm going to switch it up on this show. I think we go how they did against the top teams now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So against the Yankees, they basically, again, they played the 2 top teams in the American League, in the Orioles and the Yankees. There's a very clear divide between these 2 teams, especially in terms of offense.
Yeah.
The only reason the Mariners were able to salvage 3 of these last 7 games is because of their pitching staff and timely hitting.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at, the Juan Sotos, the Aaron Judges, the Gunnar Hendersons, the Adley Rutschmans of the world, the Mariners, especially with Julio struggling right now, he was moved down to 6th in the lineup in the last game of the series. Looking at the Mariners offense, they don't have those guys. And yes, there are guys that are supposed to be able to perform. Mitch Garver is very much underperforming. So is Jorge Polanco. So is JP Crawford. Like, there are plenty of guys in this Mariners lineup that are underperforming, and especially Julio Rodriguez specifically. But they obviously lack the star power that a lot of these other teams have, and they've been done in different ways. you look at the Yankees, who added Juan Soto, who traded for Giancarlo Stanton 700 years ago, who drafted and developed Aaron Judge, and then they went out and acquired Verdugo, etc. And then you look at the Orioles, who are very much draft and develop, which is kind of more the Mariners' style of doing things. With Gunnar Henderson, Jordan Westburg, Adley, etc. That both ways are doable, and to say that the team, the Mariners specifically, need to go out there and make these big additions, they need to go out there and trade for X, Y, and Z. You just faced it. You just lost a series to a team that doesn't do that. I mean, Corbin Burns was the big trade for the Orioles. The Mariners obviously don't need to make a big pitching trade like that, but if they could make like an offensive addition of that same sort of caliber, then sure. But looking ahead to where this team is, Joe, how do you think they stack up against the best teams in baseball?
I mean, you said it best. The star power just isn't there. And when your star, Julio Rodriguez, is not performing up to what he needs to or what he's expected to, it's tough for you. Sure, you're getting, in the month of May alone, you're getting a 200 WRC plus from Dylan Moore and a 211 WRC plus from Luke Raley. Cal Raleigh's got a 123. Mitch Garver's got a 121. Ty France has a 104 WRC plus. There are guys who are performing, doing some of the heavy lifting here, but when Julio Rodriguez has a 98 WRC plus, it's below average. His main form of production here has been just with singles, with base hits. He's currently slugging 333. That's not what you need out of your guy, especially in the 2 spot. Like, if you want to say, maybe attribute what a 2-hole hitter was back in like 2003, Julio Rodriguez is a prototypical 2-hitter right now. He's gets on base by hitting singles and he steals bases. Like, if that's not the leadoff hitter or the 2-hole hitter getting on for your third guy in your lineup, I don't know what it is. But it's just not how the game is built today. And you can just see how big of a difference is when you look at the lineups. And having to move him out of the 2 or 3 spot, moving him down to 6, putting Dylan Moore and Luke Raley, sure, they've been playing very well. They're deserved to be there. But you look across the diamond and you see Juan Soto and Aaron Judge versus Dylan Moore and Luke Raley. There's a big difference there. Like there's a huge difference there. And sure, like, have Luke Raley and Dylan Moore, like I said, they've earned their spots there. But just in general, they're not as big of a force as Soto and Judge. They're not commanding as much respect. And so, yes, the pitching has been good enough to keep them afloat during these 2 big series. They didn't really do that great against Baltimore. 2 big blow-up games for them. They got outscored 18-9 in that series. The pitching, I thought it would be a little bit more in favor of the Mariners, but the Baltimore pitching staff is actually, they showed to be a bit better, or maybe the Mariners offense is that bad. But
Yep.
I don't know. And the thing is the way forward, it's not super cut and dry because you can't just produce Juan Soto out of thin air. You can't go acquire him at the deadline for nothing. And you have to be in a position to acquire a guy like that at the deadline. And sure, the Mariners have a pretty decent farm system filled with guys that could entice trades that way, but I can't look around to the bottom. Like, not that I can't, but if you look around to the bottom of the barrel teams around the league, there's not a Juan Soto just sitting on them waiting to get traded. Sure, Luis Robert Jr. is there on the White Sox, but they're not quite on the same caliber. The team
hasn't played a game in like a month and a half.
Yes, he has been injured with, I think it's either it doesn't matter, hip strain, oblique strain, it doesn't matter. But overall, the Mariners WRC plus on the season sitting at 98 when you look at the Yankees leading the league at 123, Baltimore's in the top 10 at 109. That's the big difference. They have offensive guys to allow, one, if their pitching staff doesn't have their best stuff today, they can go out there and grind out at-bats, score some runs, and keep them in the ball game. Sure, the Mariners have done that here and there. They obviously did it against the Yankees. They've been doing it against teams' bullpens like it's no tomorrow, but that's just the big difference. That's the discrepancy, is they just don't have the offensive weapons, or at least they're not performing right now.
And let's say that like Julio is performing to his career norms and Mitch Garver and Polanco are performing to their career norms. This is a different conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if these guys are just performing to how they always have, but for some reason they're not right now, completely different conversation. This Mariners offense is pretty potent at that point because you have guys like Luke Raley performing and Dylan Moore performing, guys who, and Josh Rojas, for example. You have guys that are performing that you didn't expect to necessarily perform at the caliber that they are right now. Plus, that's what you need to happen. You need your stars to be stars, and then you need your tertiary players to step up. The tertiary players have stepped up, Joe, but the stars of this team have not, and that's the big difference. The Mariners pitching staff can go 1 through 5 against any pitching staff in all of baseball, no doubt. And if the Mariners were to make it to the playoffs, for example, the Mariners pitching staff in a short series, nobody wants to face them.
Correct.
Nobody. But offensively, you also know that you have a chance every night because this team offensively sucks butts.
Whoa.
They just suck butts. Like just straight dirty butts. You know?
That's such a bad way to phrase it, but I'm with you.
And like you said, there isn't like when the Padres went out and acquired Juan Soto, he was on a Nationals team that was bad.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously we're gonna go see the Nationals soon, and we're gonna see two of the players the Nationals got in that trade, in Mackenzie Gore and CJ Abrams. But I think that, look, like you said, Luis Robert Jr. is probably the only guy who even kind of fits that mold. And even then, his addition is nowhere near the caliber that it would be of adding Juan Soto. Juan Soto's a free agent at the end of the year. Do the Mariners go fishing in that pond? No.
Probably not.
God, I wish they would. If there's one player that they could add in the past 5 or 6 years in free agency that I would want them to add, it'd be Juan Soto. Looking forward now, Joe, the big thing about this pitching staff was the fact that once they turned it over the bullpen hasn't been sharp. And the Mariners kind of made a move after the third game of this series to fix that from the Baltimore Orioles. The Orioles, the Yankees, the Nationals, there's all tied in here. You know what I mean? There's just a bunch of little tie-ins. And Mike Baumann is now a Seattle Mariner, Joe. Can you tell me a little bit about him?
His breaking ball, knuckle curve. He's got good breaking pitches. Fastball, not very good. Decent velo, 96 miles an hour. But overall, his biggest weapon is the breaking ball. And I think that's something that obviously the Mariners have shown just in general, not specifically breaking balls, but a pitch that is working for a certain guy, isolating that, making it even better, and showing them how to play off of it. And it's not the like back end leverage arm that we may all be wanting out of Mike Baumann, but it's someone that can go in and kind of reestablish some roles in the bullpen. Sure, it's been very clear that it's Munoz in the 9th, Stanek or Spire in the 8th, Stanek or Spire in the 7th, depending on who's up. Beyond that, it's been hopefully you're not giving Trent Thornton inherited runners. Hopefully Austin Voth is able to limit the big blowups, and then good Lord, you better hope Cody Bolton, Kirby Seed, and Edward Rosario do not blow up the game. With Baumann, it now eliminates one of those guys that can really just let the game get away from you. And I don't think he's necessarily, I would put him around Trent Thornton is where I'm at with this acquisition. Trent Thornton's been very good this year, albeit there's been, like I said, the inherited runners aspect of Trent Thornton is just something that the Mariners really should take a look at. He's got a 2.75 ERA on the year, Trent Thornton does. Like, he's been good, right? He's got the 3rd lowest ERA out of the Mariners bullpen. Taylor Saucedo's ahead of him. Obviously, he's on the injured list. And, of course, Andres Munoz has been, I'm not going to go out and say he's the best reliever in baseball, because that's
Mason
just
Miller would like a word.
Yes, there's guys ahead of him. But in my bias about Mariners, I've loved every single, like, maybe not every single second, most every single second that Andres Munoz has been on the mound. Getting him some help to just, you're not having to worry when someone goes out there is huge. Am I going to think that every single time Mike Baumann's on the mound? No, because his start, or his outing, his debut with the Mariners today was something special. Apparently, some wild pitches and some shenanigans thrown in there, but he's a guy who's probably your 4th, 5th arm out of the pen. He seems like he limits barrels pretty well. If he can avoid limiting hard contact along with those barrels, that'll be something that could work a long way from him. But Colton, we gave up Blake Hunt, a guy that was OPSing above 900, our third string catcher, essentially, down in Tacoma. But we acquired another AAA catcher in this deal with Mike Baumann. So it's like, were we ever going to use Blake Hunt? The only way that you do that is by getting rid of Sebi Savala. You could have used him, but like, again, that position on this team is getting 4 at-bats, 5 at-bats a week. Is it really worth holding on to Blake Hunt and not shoring up the bullpen now? I'm okay with this move, ultimately. I'm pretty okay with the Mike Baumann trade. I know it's not the sexiest thing they could have done, but it's a step in the right direction in terms of getting Andres Munoz some help, I think.
I would have much rather have held on to Blake Hunt, obviously, than lose him. But I think I agree with you in the fact that this is what the Mariners needed right this second. And what kind of difference is Blake Hunt, or could Blake Hunt have made if he would have gotten called up 4 at bats a week? Like, would I feel more comfortable with him getting at bats than Sebi Zavala? Yeah, absolutely. I watched Sebi Zavala in this last game of the series. He did have like an 11 pitch at bat, so that was
Whoa.
cool against Luis Heel. So that was cool. But overall, I mean, my biggest problem with the trade, Joe, is I'm not necessarily comfortable with Michael Perez, the guy they got in this trade, and Sebi Zavala being the catchers if Cal Raleigh gets hurt.
Mhm.
Because frankly, neither of them instill any confidence in me that wouldn't be a black hole in your lineup. Whereas Blake Hunt at least would have, based on his numbers, would have given me a little bit more ease of peace of mind. What's
Peace
the
of
word?
mind,
Peace
yeah.
of mind. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's the word. Yeah. And that kind of leads me into my next question, Joe. But first, I do want to talk a little bit more about Baumann. Mike Baumann, his four-seamer, in 2023, he threw it 550 times compared to he threw his knuckle curve about half that. His four-seamer had an expected batting average of 262 with a slugging, and he had a slugging of 402, expected slugging of 486. Whereas his knuckle curve, he had he threw it 271 times, had an expected batting average of 203. He had a slugging of 244. In 2024, it's similar. He has thrown the four seamer 133 times to only 87 knuckle curve, so a little bit less of a disparity.
Mhm.
The four seamer, he's giving up a 333 batting average on with a 633 slugging.
Ouch.
That's bad. Like that's bad. And the knuckle curve, he's thrown 87 times, has a 200 batting average against it with a 200 slugging.
Just keep ripping that
It's
baby. Keep
it's
ripping the curveball.
he has a whiff percentage of almost 30% as well on his knuckle curve. So it's like it is very clear what the Mariners see in Mike Baumann and what they want out of him.
Mhm.
And it's to be that for him to throw his knuckle curve and his probably his maybe even his changeup more, because his changeup's been pretty good as well. So far, he's only thrown it 20 times this year, but it has a 200 average against it with also a 200 slugging.
Okay.
So if he wants to be like a knuckle curve changeup guy moving forward and just ditch the fastball, that's probably what you would want to see out of Mike Baumann. Maybe use it once in a while, but his fastball's been hit hard and it's not good. I mean, it has about a 2,300 spin rate, which is just completely average. That's what hitters see all the time.
Got it.
So you don't want that. And so for the Mariners and Mike Baumann, and we saw it in this his first outing. The first pitch he threw was the knuckle curve in the dirt. So
Was it a wild pitch on that one or?
yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
fantastic. Fantastic.
Yeah, it was a 4-pitch walk to Giancarlo Stanton, and like the third ball was a fastball that almost hit Giancarlo in the head.
Oh.
And Giancarlo stared him down, and I'm like, brother, like this guy just caught a train last night, found out he was traded,
Yeah.
and now he's pitching in a game versus the New York Yankees, and you're staring him down. Like, come on, Giancarlo. But I don't know. I think that with Mike Baumann, it makes a little bit more sense moving forward that he is probably that fourth guy in your bullpen. I'd put him in like the 6th inning, probably.
Yeah.
Like if someone has to come out early, or the 7th if somebody's down like Trent Thornton. I do want to just mention the one other move the Mariners made, and that was claiming Eduardo Salazar from the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Correct.
It's
just it feels like another depth arm piece that if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't,
who cares?
You won't see him again. Like we haven't seen Joey Crable. Like, it's similar move to like that to me.
The Mariners would have Salazar through 2030 or into 2030. He's a sinker and slider pitcher.
Okay.
Basically a 2-pitch guy, but he does limit barrels. And he's only thrown like 25 innings total in the majors, but he's been, if he was qualified, he has been in the top like 90 something percentile in barrels.
Oh.
So that maybe is what they see. I'm not sure. He had a 2.1% barrel percentage in 2023.
So it's another like project arm for them to hopefully put in the lab and workshop to eventually turn into a beast at some point. 2027 Eduardo Salazar leverage innings are gonna feed families. All right.
Yeah, he doesn't strike a lot of guys out. Neither does Mike Baumann. So they hopefully, at least in Salazar's case, he limits hard contact. They sent him down to AAA, so it's just another project arm. And right now, the Mariners could use them. They could use project arms right now because honestly, their bullpen sucks. So going out there and getting these project arms. I mean, Sammy Peralta had like a 9 ERA. They did what they needed to do. They cut him loose. They're like, see ya, bye, weird man. And they got rid of Sammy Peralta. Right now, let's talk about the Washington Nationals series because Joe, the Mariners are on a train down to DC.
Yeah, it's another hop, skip, and a jump. The East Coast, everyone's closer together, allows for the East Coast bias to reign strong and true over there. We're entering the tail end of this 10-game road trip, Colton. We need to go 2-1 in this series for you to be satisfied with a 5-5 record. On the mound in game one, it's George Kirby versus one of those guys, Colton, that you said was in the Juan Soto deal, Mackenzie Gore. It's not listed on the probable pitchers on MLB.com's website. So again, if this is another situation with like the Orioles series, I'm sorry. All right, I'm just going through what it looked like the last turn of the rotation was. Kirby versus Mackenzie Gore. Colton, this Nationals team, I think, is starting to kind of revert back to where we expected them to be at the beginning of this year. They were playing close to 500 ball. They're now 6 games under 500. CJ Abrams has finally come back down to earth. In his last 15 games, he's hitting 197 with a 222 on base and a 246 slugging. He seems like a very bright spot for this Nationals team going forward, but he is still young. He seems like he still has some hiccups, some bumps in the road. For one, me personally, I'm happy that he's slowing down, because if we get, smoking hot CJ Abrams, he's going to hit leadoff homers every single game. It feels like that's something that I would like to avoid. Another guy that's having a pretty solid year as far as production is concerned, Jesse Winker. The Jesse Winker revenge series might be well on its way, but he has also kind of slowed down given his production previously on the year. Overall, he's hitting 226, 346 with a 746 OPS on the year, 6 homers, but over his last 15, he's only hitting a $170. Yes, he's still walking a ton. That's his MO. But Colton, I've got good faith the Mariners can get to this Nationals team that I think was kind of like playing above their bill beforehand. Similar to like the Athletics, a team that was playing well, has now come back down to earth. The Mariners should be able to take advantage of this team in this series.
Or like the Pirates at the start of this year too. It's like there have been a lot of teams that are just kind of, they started out really hot, but as all things usually do over a 162 game season, they regress to the mean. Mackenzie Gore has been pretty good so far this year. He has a 3.3 ERA so far in 2024, and he's a guy who has been one of the top pitching prospects in baseball when he was with the Padres, and it just hasn't worked out. And now, as he enters, I think, his 3rd full major league season, I think.
Something like that.
He is kind of figuring it out a little bit. He's a left-handed pitcher on the mound, so the Mariners are probably going to run their right-handed lineup out there. We'll probably see Mitch Haniger in there. We'll probably see Luis Urias in there. I'll be interested to see if maybe they give JP a day off, just maybe they want to work him back slowly into this lineup every day. I will be interested to see kind of what the Mariners roll out with this lineup tomorrow. But that brings us into game 2, Joe, with Logan Gilbert and Trevor Williams.
Colton, I know you didn't really get a chance to touch on the offense because I was kind of yapping. But on the year, these teams are relatively similar, which is kind of scary. The Mariners, I think, are leagues ahead of them in terms of strikeout percentage. Duh. But as far as slash line is concerned, the Nationals are hitting 225, the Mariners 226. Nationals on base 305, Mariners on base 301. Nationals slugging 352, Mariners slugging 373. So I think that's where we kind of take the advantage there, because our team WRC plus is 98. Their team WRC plus on the year is 89. So I think that's probably where you take the big jump. Is the Mariners have definitely run into some power, some gaps, some homers when we needed to. I do trust this Mariners offense to, I think, be a little bit more consistent than the Nationals. But those slash lines being so close is kind of scary. But you said it, Gilbert versus Trevor Williams. I mean, you got to give it to Gilbert, especially with guys on the Nationals roster kind of slumping like Abrams and Winker. Like, looking around the rest of this lineup, I'm not worried about Joey Gallo. I'm not worried about his corpse. I'm not worried about Keibert Ruiz necessarily. Joey Meneses, yeah, he can cause some problems. Eddie Rosario, like, I'm not overly worried by a lot of these guys on this team. They do have a couple guys decent in the bullpen. Hunter Harvey's a bullpen target that Accent has been pounding the table for it feels like the last year and a half. But although the slash lines are similar, I still will give the nod to the Mariners offense along with the pitching in this series.
Yeah, I mean, Trevor Williams has had a good year. I don't like him as a person.
Reasonable.
He's not a great person. But like on the year right now, I think he has a 2.35 ERA. He's put up a 1.4 WAR already. Like, Trevor Williams has pitched pretty well, 35 strikeouts with a 1.087 WHIP in the 9 games that he has started. It's just 9 games. And when you look at his career, he has not been anywhere near that. He has a career ERA plus of 95.
Mm-hmm.
Like Logan Gilbert is leagues ahead of Trevor Williams, and that's not to say that the Mariners might not struggle against him, because we've seen this Mariners offense not look great, and it kind of seems like Trevor Williams has found something so far this year. So it's not like the pitching is going to be a cakewalk. Like, it's not like the pitchers the Mariners are going to face is going to be a cakewalk. But compared to facing Luis Gil, Nestor Cortez, etc., it's going to be a whole different ball game. These are much easier guys to hit against.
Yeah.
Moving into Game 3 with Brian Wu against Mitchell Parker, Joe, that's one that I feel like the Mariners should take with these.
Yeah, and it's another lefty on the mound as well for the Nationals, so you will see the right-handed heavy lineup there. Wu, he has pitched exceptionally in his outing so far. I don't expect that to change. I trust his stuff. I trust his ability to be on the mound. He's smooth like butter. He's fun to watch pitch, ultimately. And this is a series that you need to win. I think, yes, the Mariners held their own against the Yankees relatively, didn't necessarily do so against the Orioles. This is a series where if you want to maintain your lead in the American League West, stay atop of that division, and show everyone around the MLB that might be doubting this team as far as offense is concerned, this is a series you need to go out and take. And last year, the ghosts, the spookies, the National Series in 2023, it was one that at the end of the year you're looking back on, that's one the Mariners should have taken at home in T-Mobile. This is one that they need to go out and do and take in Nationals Park on the road. They need to go get it done. They didn't get it done in 2023. They have to do it in 2024, because this cannot be another situation where you look back on it at the end of the year. You're like, oh, well, you dropped 2 out of 3 to the Nationals, so that's a series you probably should have won.
The Mariners have been playing a lot of teams over 500 right now. The Nationals are not that. The Nationals are not a good baseball team, and the Mariners need to take advantage of that. Again, sweeping in baseball is hard, and I don't think the Mariners will sweep this series. I'm sure the Nationals will take one. With that being said, personally last year, I was in Atlanta when the Mariners were playing the Nationals back here at home, and I was up till like 4 a.m. listening to like an extra innings game that just went south so fast. I threw my phone. I just threw it aside. I'm like, I don't want to listen to this anymore. You guys suck.
Yeah,
you guys are buns.
I'm pretty sure Ty France had a chance with the bases loaded in that game.
And then he hit into double play.
Something like that, yeah. It was just situations that you could have taken advantage of. You didn't. Make sure you don't do that this year.
Mm-hmm. And looking forward to kind of what's going on. The good news for the Mariners is the Rangers are playing horrible right now. Again, they just played the Phillies, the best team in the National League, best team in baseball. But the Mariners just played the Yankees, the second best team in the American League. First best team in the American League, second best team in baseball. Like, the Mariners went 2-2 against the Yankees. The Astros got swept, I believe. Or not the Astros, the Rangers got swept.
Yeah.
And the Astros are playing better. The Mariners will see them when they come home, Joe, for a big 4-game series there. Obviously, the Mariners took the first series down in Houston. So the American League West right now is still open to anybody. And the Mariners still have the lead in there. But that's going to do it for us here on episode 89 of the Hit It Here podcast, presented by Bet Online. The Greg Fernandez episode of the Hit It Here podcast. And go Mariners.
I'm doing the Phoenix.
Oh.